Chapter 12. Lines in the Sand. The city's glow receded behind them as the car sped through the quiet outskirts, the hum of the engine and the rhythmic thrum of tires on the road, the only sounds. Michael sat in the passenger seat, his fingers curled tightly around the burner phone in his pocket. He could feel the tension radiating from Samira and Gabriel, both of whom seemed lost in their thoughts. The coordinates Alexei had provided were still a mystery, and each mile brought them closer to an unknown danger. "We're almost there," Samira said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but Michael caught the edge of nervous energy. She glanced at the GPS display on her phone, which glowed faintly in the darkness. "About 5 more minutes." Gabriel, driving with a tight grip on the wheel, didn't take his eyes off the road. "And what exactly are we expecting to find? Another cryptic message? Another trap?" Michael leaned back, exhaling slowly. "I don't know, but Alexei wouldn't send us here without a reason. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it." Gabriel shook his head, muttering under his breath, "That's a hell of a gamble." Samira shot Gabriel a look but said nothing. Her attention returned to her phone, her fingers tapping the screen as she pulled up a satellite view of their destination. "It's some kind of industrial complex," she said. "Abandoned from the looks of it. There's no record of recent activity, but that doesn't mean it's empty," Michael finished. He stared out the window, the dim outlines of trees and old warehouses passing by like ghosts. The closer they got, the heavier the air seemed to grow, as if the weight of what they were about to face was pressing down on them. The car slowed as they approached a chain-link fence that surrounded the complex. Rusted and sagging in places, it looked like it hadn't been maintained in decades. A faded sign hung crookedly on the gate, Roatech Genetics. The name sent a shiver through Michael. He'd seen it before in Elizabeth Rowe's files, a remnant of a past that continued to haunt him. Gabriel killed the engine, and the group sat in silence for a moment, staring at the gate. Samira was the first to move, grabbing a flashlight and opening the car door. "Let's check it out." Michael and Gabriel followed, their footsteps crunching softly on the gravel. The gate was padlocked, but the chain was loose enough for them to slip through. On the other side, the complex loomed like a graveyard of progress, its skeletal structures silhouetted against the faint glow of the city in the distance. "Stay close," Michael said, his voice low. He pulled out his own flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness to reveal cracked pavement and overgrown weeds. The buildings ahead were windowless and foreboding, their metal exteriors streaked with rust. Samira led the way, her movements cautious but confident. "If Alexei left us something, it'll be inside. We just need to figure out which building." Gabriel muttered under his breath, but followed without complaint. His unease was palpable, but he kept it in check, his eyes scanning the shadows for movement. They reached the largest building in the complex, its doors hanging slightly ajar. Michael's grip tightened on the flashlight as they stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and something chemical, a sharp scent that made his nose sting. The beam of his flashlight illuminated a gutted interior, rows of overturned desks, shattered glass, and rusted equipment scattered across the floor. "This place has been abandoned for years," Samira said, her voice echoing faintly in the cavernous space. "Not completely," Gabriel replied, pointing to a set of footprints in the dust. They led deeper into the building, disappearing into the shadows. Michael exchanged a glance with Samira, then nodded. They followed the trail, the silence around them broken only by the creak of their steps on the old flooring. The path led them to a smaller room at the back of the building. The door was ajar, and a faint glow emanated from within. "Someone's here," Michael whispered, his heart pounding. Samira reached for the handgun holstered at her side, her movements slow and deliberate. Gabriel mirrored her, his jaw tight as he gripped his weapon. Michael pushed the door open the rest of the way, his flashlight sweeping the room. A single desk stood in the center, its surface cluttered with papers and a laptop that cast a dim, flickering light. Behind it, a figure sat, their face obscured by the shadows. Michael's pulse quickened as he stepped closer. "Who are you?" Michael demanded, his voice firm. The figure looked up, and Michael's breath caught. It wasn't Alexei, but the resemblance was uncanny. The man's features were sharp and familiar, a distorted echo of Michael's own face. His eyes, however, were darker, colder. "You don't recognize me?" the man said, his voice low and edged with something Michael couldn't quite place. He stood slowly, his movements measured. "I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. They didn't exactly give us time to bond." Gabriel stepped forward, his weapon raised. "Start talking. Who the hell are you?" The man smirked, his gaze flicking between them. "Call me Subject Alpha," he said. "Or Alexei's shadow if you prefer. I've been waiting for you." Michael's grip tightened on his flashlight. "Why? What do you want?" Alpha gestured to the laptop on the desk. "Alexei left this for you. He thought it might accelerate your understanding of what you're up against. But I'm not here to make things easy for you." Samira's eyes narrowed. "What's on it?" Alpha's smirk widened. "Everything you need to know, and everything that will make you wish you'd stayed hidden." Before anyone could respond, Alpha moved suddenly, flipping the desk and sending the laptop crashing to the floor. The room erupted into chaos as he lunged for the nearest exit, his movements impossibly fast. Michael shouted and gave chase, Gabriel close behind. Outside, the cold night air hit like a slap. Alpha disappeared into the darkness, his footsteps barely audible. Michael swung his flashlight beam wildly, searching for any sign of him. "He's gone," Gabriel said, frustration laced in his voice as he came to a halt. Michael turned back toward the building, his chest heaving. "The laptop, Samira?" Inside, Samira knelt over the wreckage of the desk. Her fingers moved deftly through the shattered remains of the laptop, pulling out its battered hard drive. "It's damaged, but not beyond repair," she said, her voice firm. "If there's anything left on here, we'll find it." Michael stared at the hard drive in her hands, his thoughts racing. Alpha's words echoed in his mind. Everything you need to know. Whatever the drive contained, it was key to understanding Nemesis's true agenda. "Let's not waste time," he said, his voice resolute. "We'll analyze it at the next safe house. For now, we move." As they reached the car, Gabriel glanced back at the complex, his features tight with unease. "That guy, Alpha, he's not just some rogue experiment, is he?" Michael shook his head. "No, he's something more. And I don't think we've seen the last of him." The drive back into the city was silent, the weight of the encounter pressing down on them. The faint hum of the engine was the only sound, a constant reminder of the road ahead. As they passed the outskirts and the city lights began to reappear, Michael allowed himself a moment to breathe. But in the pit of his stomach, he knew the battle was only beginning. "We'll figure it out," Samira said softly, as if reading his thoughts. Michael nodded, his grip on the wheel tightening. "We have to.